Welcome to Walz, a podcast on sci-fi, philosophy, religion, politics, and gaming, and anything else taboo. I was hoping I wasn't going to stuff it up, but I think we've stuffed it up every 40 episodes now of our intro.
I think you're right.
It's been 4 years. It's been a long, long time. I'm Ben Banasik.
I'm Tara Smith.
Yeah. We're in two different locations now. There's no lockdown because the last couple of episodes we were talking about lockdown and the terrible presidency of Trump. So, which brings us together 4 years later to talk about no lockdowns and a possible future, bright future under President Trump.
Yep, that's right. It was so dire that we felt the need to re sort of ignite the podcast. That's how much we felt inspired by it.
Yeah. Well, yes. Also, I had access. We can regained access to the podcast. So I actually lost access for quite some time. Because it was connected to an old email address. Oh, look, there's someone in the background. Yeah, totally planned. So when I got access to the pod again, I found that actually there's a bucket load of subscribers that have still listening to our stuff and appreciate our work, particularly, our philosophy and, sci-fi type stuff, which is kind of cool. So I'm keen to restart it again with you, Tara. But before we kick it off, let's go back 4 years ago. COVID happens. You're studying a PhD. I'm studying my PhD. My business blows up in size. You make a move, and then we stop doing the pod. Now, so what happened from there? Where'd you go?
Me from there. Well, everything sort of really changed. I ended a long-term relationship. I started another long-term relationship. I moved out of my apartment in Lakemba and I moved into an apartment in Karawa, which is where I am now, which is Neutral Bay, which is
not
very
a made-up
nice
place. It's just a limited place that no one hears about.
I know.
Those northern beach places, you're like, where's that?
Exactly. I think there's like 10 people that live in this suburb. It's very small.
Yeah.
But it's very nice. And so I'm here with I got engaged with the ring. I'm getting married next year. And I went to the US. I went to Harvard for a year. I did a postdoc fellow on Warhammer 40K, which is as cool as it sounds. And
before, whoa, the postdoc. So you're now a doctor.
I'm a doctor, that's right. Thank you. I have graduated. And then, I got a postdoc. I finished the postdoc, and now I'm back in Sydney town.
And your postdoc, the topic was Warhammer?
Science fiction. Oh, yeah, sorry. Postdoc was Warhammer 40K, looking at religion in a few different ways, looking at religion in the law. If anyone's familiar with 40K, you know that it's like Catholics or nuns in space. It's like they love the kind of Catholic imagery. So I was very intrigued by that. So I was looking at religion in that way. I was also looking at religion in the Trump way. So I'm writing a paper at the moment on God, Emperor, and Trump. I'm sure you're aware of the memes of sort of using sort of God, Emperor imagery with Trump's head superimposed, and people actually referring to Trump as the God, Emperor. Like, I think ironically, but probably also not ironically. And so that's also been very interesting, that kind of like combination of like kind of like fascist ideologies, 40K, which has a bit of like a kind of people can see the kind of law, which is meant to be ironic and satirical, and think like, hey, I want to be like those guys, which was not what the original creators intended at all. So that's kind of another area I'm exploring. And then also flow state, which Ben likes flow state. So I was like, I want to do flow state like Ben. And so I've been exploring flow state as well in painting. So I did interviews over a 6-month period with 14 avid painters and looked at their sort of flow, whether they got into flow state. And surprise, they did. So,
oh, wow.
So, surprise. I was surprised. But then I also, when I was interviewing them, asked them like what conditions help them get into flow, what doesn't get them to flow, and then how is kind of 40K painting is used as a way to support positive mental health and reduce anxiety. So a lot of people that are drawn to 40K often have like ADHD or, all sorts of sort of like have trouble keeping attention, and just be able to sit there and paint for like 4 hours, drone everything out. And I think also not having a computer screen, it's normally a physical game that you paint, and also going to the store and that sense of community. So that's sort of the bigger picture of 40K and religion. So they're the three sort of avenues of religion I was exploring. And I've got 2 papers accepted and 2 chapters accepted, but now I'm like, they're all like, where are the pieces you said you would do? So I've been typing along and trying to write them all. So it's been busy at the moment. I'm taking an unpaid sabbatical, which is what I'm calling it, which basically means I'm looking for work.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Academic life. But no, that's awesome that you're working on lots of stuff. And the religion aspect of it, like the flow stuff, we've spoken about it at heaps. I think it's I've become, I guess 4 years later, more accepting of different types of games having an agency to create that flow state for people in unexpected means. So whereas previously I was thinking that certain things create, I guess, the opportunity for agency for those flow states. You know, painting a miniature is a very good example of that. But then owning the stores and seeing gamers get into like otaku, and then since going to Japan and seeing otaku culture in that regard, really anything can provide that agency. It's about what the effort puts into it, and then I guess the bounce back of the return of that effort and how that affects the individual. So yeah, it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, and it's also my understanding of when Chick sent me Harley, or whatever, however you pronounce this ridiculously long name. Like his whole idea was that flow is meant to be something that's sort of like universal. That's something that you can find in any culture, any religion, any time, and with specific activities. But what's been interesting too is also reading all the like critiques of flow, of that it sort of like creates almost like a cope in dealing with like contemporary society that then prevents us from like rising up and being like, hey, actually the systems that we're in suck, which is also interesting. I think is this like critique.
I get that, but that sort of critique doesn't generally accept William James, religious experience as a normative thing that humans should do. So, writing from a sociological perspective and critiquing, it's well and good to have your religious type of thing in the corner, but really you're still going to be fucked up as a human, depressed as hell. Exactly. How are you going to get out of that state? It's different. Anyway,
you've been busy too, Ben.
I have. So 4 years ago, I was planning the move of my store from MacArthur Square to Narellan, and that went really well. We opened up, and then 6 weeks later, COVID hit again. So we went into that lockdown. And whilst the store was really big, I had I don't even know how to say it, but I got cancer. I was told I had cancer. So I developed DFSP, my right shoulder. Tara came and saw me, and in hospital I looked a lot different, I think, then. And it's all fine. But yeah, I can't lift anything in my right shoulder. So I struggled with the business, and I was sort of in denial about, the amount of time that it took up, the amount of effort that it took up. And then what happened at the end of 2022, there was a couple of really, really big sets for Magic and One Piece. And the companies then made an announcement that they were going to grow bigger in size. So by then I had my Campbelltown store in plan, Narellan store already open. MacArthur Square was already shutting down, and my website ended up being like second biggest retailer in Australia for Pokemon and Magic cards. Yeah, it was really good. Really great timing, because at the same time, every single one of my academic contracts was deleted. So yeah, I was booted off. I think ACU was first to go, then Sydney, and then Newcastle was last. I'm back now at Newcastle, which is cool. I'm getting offered a 3-year part-time thing, which is really, really cool. Yeah, but it was shit. Hey, you were going through it as well, and doing casual shit with economics lectures and marking and stuff, and we just struggled to get through as academics. But we were really the plankton at the bottom of the ocean, and just got swallowed up. And a lot of the decisions that got made at those 3 institutions, that was just to get rid of philosophy and religious studies. Yeah. Not because of COVID, but because it was a push that was happening prior. And now we're getting to the end of it. So Newcastle's cool, because we're linking in with ethics now, which is really great. But yeah, anyway, so I sold the business. I found a buyer, which is Good Games. They're the only purchaser really that would purchase the stores because they're the biggest retailer in Australia. And Luke will know that, you've either got Warhammer stores or you've got Good Game stores. Basically, that's all there are. And there's a couple of independents which are in between. And then my friend, my former enemy actually of in politics, Judy, she offered me a job because she got elected as an independent MP. So she's a colleague of your mother, which is amazing. So I'm back working in state politics. So I see your mum all the time, which is awesome. And I send her messages.
I visited Benn in Parliament, and it's very funny how it kind of is all. Ben and I just circulate each other in different industries, basically.
Yeah. Celestial orbs going through space or something. It's very funny. Very, very funny. So I guess that's what's happened. I had a child since then as well, Hannah. I don't think we know about Hannah on this podcast. So Hannah is named after Hannah.
I haven't even met Hannah, have I, Ben?
Have you?
Which is crazy. I haven't met her. No.
Maybe. Yeah. But Hannah is named after Hannah Arendt. I was very descriptive about all three of my children, Jack, Isaiah, and Hannah. So Jack being named after the big fella, Jack Lang, and he's kind of he's a big, tall dude, kind heart. Isaiah is named after the second prophet Isaiah, not the first prophet, the one that's crazy and douses himself in shit. So that's kind of like Isaiah. And Hannah Arendt is argumentative as hell. So, Jody and I are just about to hit 10 years married as well.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And you moved to a new place. Woo.
Oh, yeah. So movement from a new place. I got elected at the same time. So I repeated history. My dad ran for council and wanted to move at the same time, and he bought a business at the same time. So that was a hellish time to live through when I was 11. So Isaiah, this campaign, loved the hell of my re-election campaign. So I got re-elected as councillor, which is really good. I got 19% in 2 wards, so I got 2 councillors elected, which is really good. But solid opposition. So there's 3 of us, and then there's another group.
Yeah. So that means anybody listening that has issues with the potholes is up to you.
Yeah, that's me.
Talk to Ben, not to me.
It's hard. It's hard. They're all independents, but they're all kind of a block. So we deal with what we have. Yeah. Yes,
well, so and from memory, you're also starting up your PhD again. Is that right?
I am. Yeah. I'm reorganizing all of it. So I've spoken to Carol, yourself, I've spoken to Ray and another couple of academic people that, from other institutions, who you're yet to meet. So Joe Quilter is a local artist who I speak to all the time, and he actually writes on ethics and philosophy. He's studies a religion person, and he's doing his PhD at the moment as well. So he's meant to be our bestie, but we never knew him. He lives around the corner.
That's very cool.
So I've asked them all, you all, for a different advice. And I'm going to reorganize it all and then just submit it and get the PhD done, which will be really good. It's been a long time coming. I lost the data, which is embarrassing. So
I didn't realize.
Yeah, I didn't renew it, and I didn't really care, and I didn't have access to the login for email because when I got cancer, I told Sydney Uni I had to go on leave, and then they had the shutdowns during that period, and then I got locked out of my email account, and then Carol tried to get it rescued, but we couldn't do it. So basically it sat in this no access for quite some time. I was using which data set? It was one of the, so my subscription died, basically.
Some four-letter acronym.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah, so my subscription died to the data set, and then, they deleted all my data. So through the campaign, I was like, I wonder if I could get it the other way from the questioning end. So I was sitting at Douglas Park, just having a break in the car park. I know it's really specific. You don't really care where Douglas Park is, but I care. So it's a little tiny village. There's nothing there much at all, but there's a little community hall and kind of reflective place because I got the community hall built. So I drove there through the campaign and I was thinking about stuff, and I went on my phone, and I don't believe in divine intervention or anything like that. I was looking on my phone going, I wonder if I could get my data set back. And I went to Google and I restarted the app and did data recovery through my Google side, and all my data came back.
That's awesome.
Like 4 years later, the whole lot. I was like, holy shit. Like, yeah.
That's crazy. And it was that easy, and you're like, you could have just done that at the start.
Yeah. So it's not divine intervention. It's like stupidity over a long period of time. I think that's
good. So it's like PhD's back on the table, boys, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's very exciting.
Yeah. So that'll be cool.
Really, it feels like, Ben, a lot has changed, but not much has changed between either of us. We're sort of doing more or less the same.
Basically exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Complaining about the world. We both have cats still. They're still the same cats. So yeah. You have Wingspan in the background, I see.
Yeah, Luke and I are addicted. We play almost every day. It's our favorite.
Oh, really?
Game. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
I like code names as well. We've played that.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And I don't know about you, Ben, but I've been very much glued to all sorts of political shows, including the American election. I've been watching the Fireside Chat on ABC, and then also the with Chaz and the other guy.
Yes.
They do a Friday, Wednesday show. So I've been watching that on the ABC and kind of keeping up to date. And then I just search Reddit by popular to get like a good indication.
Okay, yeah. So that's what my follow-up question was. You're like, where's your media source now? Because media, like, this is what has changed in the last 4 years, really. ABC is kind of dead for like reporting on anything internationally, politically, and regurgitates things now, 24 hours later. So you go to Reddit, I go to YouTube. I guess my furthest left media source is the Young Turks. Furthest right is probably, I listen to a lot of alt-right stuff as well. But Fox News I have to listen to. So with my job working in state politics, I have to go the full gamut. Yeah. But because of that, I don't know, you're picking up that the modern, like, the liberal media, or the modern mainstream media, you call it, is very much wedded towards Kamala Harris. And you watch these live things, and you're like, okay, X happens, whatever it is with Trump. You're like, okay, that's a small thing. And then it's just blown up on MSNBC or CNN or one of those. And then the opposite happens. If something happens with Kamala, then it's, blown up, obviously, like it used to on Fox News.
Definitely. I mean, but I also, like, just thinking of the ABC, I also feel like weirdly the ABC is moving much more centrist. Like, I think everybody thinks ABC is really far left, and at the moment I don't think it is at all. No. I think it depends on your perspective, but like, especially on their reporting on the Greens, it's like every angle they get to basically, the Greens are just like hated by everyone. Anyway, we won't talk too much about Australian politics, but in terms of the American, I do find that the Fireside Chat, they try and keep a bit of neutrality around Trump. So I don't feel like they've been really obviously pro Kamala. But when they cut to the snippets of media from both sides in the States, I definitely see a big, very big difference between how they're reported. But I do think some things about Trump get blown out of proportion, and then he'll just repeat it like a few weeks later and basically reaffirm the kind of anxiety that people had. Like, for instance, the enemy within. Like, I thought that was quite overblown, and then it felt like he's just repeating it now in rallies. So it's like, I feel like I get it that it's kind of like, oh, they're blowing Trump out of proportion, but then, like, I don't know, it's hard because then it feels like he just repeats it and he's that awful anyway. It's like, maybe he wasn't awful as like 10 out of 10, but he's a 9 out of 10. Do we really care? But what do you think? Like, do you think that matters, that the kind of, like, maybe some nuances getting lost in the reporting of Trump?
I think so. I don't know if you watched the Rogan 3-hour thing with him, but there was a point of honesty where he was asked where he went wrong, and he said that he had some real nasty people as part of his cabinet before, and he wasn't prepared in that front, and he listened to the wrong advice in a lot of instances in that regard, and he should have just backed himself. So, for example, the Kennedy, release of information, he was told that it's in the best interest of the public not to do so, even though he had that promise that he was going to do that, and he lost a lot of his base in that regard. And he should have just not listened to, the operatives or whoever it is of the establishment saying that the community can't actually handle that the CIA they destroyed evidence throughout that period. Even if they didn't do a lot of those 3 killings, and I'm talking about Luther, X, and Kennedy, there was evidence that was known, and the community deserves to know about those things. So where he references that he just will release those because now he is listening to the right advice and he has a broad church of appeal, I think that he's actually serious about that. He then goes on to talk about RFK, and I'm a fan of RFK, right? So I don't like him having a brain worm thing, and I don't like his stance on climate change, but his views on environmental issues, particularly with microplastics and wastes going into, native streams, is very, very much on par with, what the Greens are in Australia of their historic movement, which is quite good. But then he's also got a good point in relation to medicine, and having him be in charge of that is a good thing. Having Musk, everyone attacks Musk for.
Wait. Doesn't he believe that, isn't he completely anti-vax? Didn't he write a book and edited a book about, isn't he completely anti-vaccination?
He was against the COVID vax because he thought that there was not enough evidence for it. But in terms of regular vaccinations, he's in favor of it, but he's against the health system in the US pushing people towards being on diabetes medications.
But I find he flip and flops depending on the podcast. I mean, if he's doing some sort of left podcast, he's like, "Oh, I'm willing to change my mind," and then as soon as he's on a more conservative podcast, it's suddenly complete zany, crazy conspiracy theories. I think he's a complete nut job.
No, if you read most of his stuff and how it's how he has spoken about it, I think that he's correct in what the statistics are. You shouldn't have 2/3 of people in California being on some sort of medication as a child, whether it be for diabetes, whether it be for some level of autism, ADD, ADHD, they're all being put on opioids. And this is, I guess, me putting on another hat of mine. Post cancer, doctors tried to push me onto opioids, and then I was told, no, you should go on to antidepressants. Now I'm not fucking depressed. I'm sore. I don't need to take those things. So, I'm now on medicinal cannabis. That works fine. And I don't have any other tablets every day. I don't take, those things for pain. Why are people in the US not given that same opportunity?
I think it's a condition of modern society, right? I agree that people shouldn't be on those medications, but if people aren't wanting to systematically change the reasons that people need to be on those medications, do you know what I mean? It's kind of I agree with maybe the cause, but maybe the solution of just saying, well, they shouldn't be on it without changing systematically how we deal with all other world problems.
So Kamala Harris and Walz, they are proposing that 12 to 14 new medications get added to the PBS each year, and that's going to save taxpayers some money. Well, I'm sorry, whoop-de-doo. That's not good enough. When we don't have a capped limit here in Australia, why are they selling out their Medicare system? If you believe that those medications are helping the community, why have the limitation of 12 to 14 per year? They're doing it because they're being paid by Big Pharma very, very openly. And you can see that's the way they push. And I guess that's the topic of today. If I can visualize, if I was in Michigan right now and I've for generations voted for Democrat, my parents have, my grandparents have, and they support the Democrats all the way through. The car industry is completely closed up, and now I'm facing unemployment. I'm now looking at higher education costs. Now the foods is being taken away for the free foods for kids is being taken away from the education as well, and plus it's unhealthy food anyway. I'm promised that 12 of my possible medications are going to be added to the PBS next year. And then the Democrats, what do? They give billions of dollars to Ukraine and money in California for development of solar panels. What would you do? You'd vote Republican.
It's a difficult one, though, because, I feel like the ad campaigns are trying to set Trump up as the man of the working class. And I just don't see in terms of tax cuts that he wants to give to billionaires, I just don't think that narrative really runs true. There's nothing working class about Trump at all. He's he's incredibly wealthy.
What he did, I don't think that follows. in his first term, he gave more money to small businesses and startups. That's why he's a working class person. Because these people sit at home and have seen him on The Apprentice and think that he is one of them because he breaks the narrative all the time. Like he's funny as fuck. He's very, very funny. Like that's despite him being terrifying at some stages with what he says. And I think he talks off script a lot. He knows comedic timing. He just gets it, you know. And you can see when Walz and Kamala try and do it, that it's just not. I don't think it's legitimate, and I think the community is starting to see through that.
You think that there's like a kind of dishonesty that people assume that. Yeah. Look, it's a tough one because it's kind of like I don't feel very pro-Democrat at all, but I feel similar to other people of like, well, you know, what else can we kind of do? Because I just think a Trump presidency would be so diabolically awful. I mean, I don't know, you know, what is their like project? What is it? Project 21 or Project?
Or 24 or 25 or whatever it was.
Trump's like, that's not, I didn't write that and blah, blah, blah. But
it contradicts a lot of his positions, but it's a want piece for some of his supporters. And it's very openly a want piece from his supporters in that regard.
But you think he would implement a lot of those if he gets elected?
No, I would look at that as the same way that Erica Betts writes an Australian article before, you know, the coalition gets elected all the time. The guy's a crazy nut job. Like I'm sorry, Senator Betts, if anyone shows him this video at some point, but he's a fucking nut job. Like some of the stuff he asks for just is not part of the norm. But you then have a conservative person like, you know, I guess Howard that comes in and says, this is a broad church. We're going to listen to him and we're going to listen to Costello. And we're going to, you know, come between and then make a decision in between. So that, I guess, is the reality of what's going on in the Republican camp at the moment. They're starting to form themselves as this party and they're in a rebirth. There's a lot of excitement about that at this time. The Democrats, there's not much excitement. And you can see they're divided. You know, what did Biden say yesterday about, day before, about the garbage statement?
I saw that.
And then Trump rocks up in a garbage truck.
Yeah. I think I really don't want to see a Trump election because basically I have a lot of friends in the States that I met that are on precarious visas or, you know, that are immigrants that would basically their lives and, you know, could be at jeopardy and at risk. And I really do think that will be something that Trump will do, is do mass deportation of people. And that will have a huge effect on the US economy. Basically could send them into recession. I just saw someone doing a brief infographic of comparing the two different economic policies. And if he goes through that deportation campaign, basically, it's going to set the American economy really far backwards. But the point is, regardless of what I think about Trump, I think he's going to get elected. And the reason I think he's going to get elected most of all is I think that similar to what you've talked about, and I think people are feeling very disenfranchised. And even though economically the country did better under Biden than it did under Trump, and that the stats back that up if you look at almost any metric, it didn't feel like it. And that's the only thing that matters. It doesn't matter that it wasn't big picture better. It just matters that I felt worse, and therefore I'm going to vote for Trump because people want to change, right?
I think that the feel aspect is definitely there. I would debate on the basis of some of the statistics because you've got a recession on the back of COVID. So, you know, there's certain stats. So if you take out that period, and you could statistically argue that the last year of Trump and the first year of Biden, you actually have it almost on par. But the economic renewal, and that's where I was talking about, where those working class people feel like they were given more, they got more checks from Trump.
Yeah.
You know, so this is the thing that you say, you feel better under Trump. So is more than 12 medications going to be added to the PBS under Trump? Probably not. You know, he's probably going to do bloody exactly the same as Harris and Biden. But he's got a broader church underneath him. And I guess that there's some wanton desire for the community that maybe those other people can do something. But I don't know if that's right now. Do you want to pitch on to me showing you an example of some gaming stuff I found from both of these VPs? Because this is kind of fun. All right.
Yeah.
So we've had a a debate with these two VPs. Now, I know this is a podcast, so we're going to do something. This is also being vodcast now on YouTube. Forgot to tell you.
I like
so
the podcast word. That's cool. We're so cool.
Vodcast and vodcast. Yeah. So the vodcast is happening now on YouTube. And hang on, I'll share this. So you can see us without these screens, and you can see us with these screens too. And look, we're going to go into infinity mode. Oh my god! Okay, let's minus that. All right. So can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can also see some of the things you've been watching.
Yeah. So what have I been watching? Underworld, melodic stuff. There's Governor. You got to watch out because you got. Oh, that was actually an amazing view. Anyway, stop this. So, Tim Walz. So the VP. Apparently, he owned a Dreamcast when he was younger. So let's just play this. This isn't a demo that someone created where they've got the character. I'm not playing any sound or anything like that. But this is the character of Crazy Taxi 2, putting it into Crazy Taxi 1. So it's Gus. And then they've changed it into Tim Walz. Now, the story goes that Tim owned a Dreamcast and he took it to... there you go. Kamala Harris is also in this one. So they've made it like as a demo thing. Democrats and Republicans do this all the time when there's elections. They grab, video games and make their own thing. Now, the weird thing about this is, okay. Let's turn the voice down there. So what the story goes is, can you hear the audio of it?
No, actually I can't.
Good. Okay. All right. That's fine. Turning it right down. Okay. So the story goes that Tim had a Dreamcast at home. He saw that there was this game that was out at the time, which wasn't as good, Grand Theft Auto, he says. And he's not too sure of the timeline, but he brought the Dreamcast to the high school literature he was teaching to play this game, Crazy Taxi. Now, the timeline just doesn't work out. So this is him playing in the background. So he's actually recording himself. He's playing on an Xbox here, not a Dreamcast. Now, this is why it's fake. You can see he's just driving. He has no concept of the brake button in Crazy Taxi, a game which is fundamentally about starting and stopping and picking up passengers along the way.
Mm-hmm. You don't think this could be because he's using an Xbox, Ben? Like if he's used to...
No.
You think he's never played
it? There you go. So he knows, he's aware of the button reverse. No. So what I think is that this is the fakeness of the Democrats, and this is why it's very sad that we don't have an honest party. He is a teacher, right? He had a Dreamcast at home in 1999. He's talking about Grand Theft Auto, which came out at the end of 2001. Dreamcast by that time, or Sega by that time, was dead as a company. It was announced as dead in March 2021, completely dead. By the end of 2021, Grand Theft Auto 3 comes out. What I think in reality has happened is he, as a dad, has taken his Dreamcast from home, and instead of the kids playing Grand Theft Auto at school, they're playing his copy of Crazy Taxi at school. He didn't buy a Dreamcast and bring it into the school as a competition for Grand Theft Auto because they were not competitive things at the time. You're talking about a full year and a half gap difference. And you can see here, he's not playing legitimately. He ends this by saying that he's the first vice president that's going to come into the White House and be a gamer, which is complete BS. Now, the reason why this has all come out, he did something further as well. So they've released this Fortnite map as well.
I saw that.
Yeah. So, it's an advertised thing of their campaign in Fortnite. The whole reason this has come out is because of this. Now, JD Vance, who's the VP, is a bit of a nerd. And he was asked about whether he played gaming or plays games at all. And his answer was, yes, he plays Magic the Gathering, or used to as a young guy. So I had the stores, and I know about a fair bit about Magic the Gathering. He used to play a card called Yawgmoth's Bargain. All right, this is again another example of how I guess the mass media. So this instance is it was repeated from the Independent, but it's on MSN. So this card here, he says was his favorite card. So Yawgmoth's Bargain is a kind of a funny card. So it's a black card. Doesn't fit with the Christian look that JD Vance has. And you have to know a little bit about Magic to know why this card is kind of special and what it does. But it costs 6 mana, so you can't play it on turn 1. You have to play it on turn 6. You have to skip your draw step, so you don't draw a card every turn, but you pay 1 life and you draw a card. So what this is expecting on turn 7, you're going to be able to do something with this card. It was banned in 1999, and then it was further banned in 2006 in Commander. The person that they quoted here in the article, and I'll find his name, is this guy. So Lucas Kunz. I don't know, how do you pronounce that surname? Kunz? Lucas Kunz? 42. And he used to play Magic the Gathering. Now, he says that this is a bad card, and they got him, out of all people, all Magic people in the world, they get a Democrat candidate to quote about whether this is a nice card or not. And according to him, this is a bad card because it shuts out your opponents, and it's, you know, very restrictive, and it's an aggressive based card. But the problem here is, again, a timeline thing. So Kunz is 42 years old. So he's the same age as me. I'm 41, he's 42. The card was actually banned in 1999 competitively, which means he would have been 17 at the time. So there is no sitting around the kitchen table drinking with your buddies at 17 in the US when you're playing this card. So he's talking about 2 different periods. The quote that they get from Reddit is here. There aren't many cards that are powerful in 1999 that are still powerful in 2024. Okay, but why are they saying that the card is banned in 2006? It's because they're talking about 2 different formats. So JD Vance was actually a vintage Magic player. He played 60-card format, which required 4 cards of each card type, or you played pile Magic, which was just every card that you owned in a casual form. It wasn't in 2002 and 2003 that the Commander format was created. And then in 2006, it was ultimately banned in Commander to match the ban that happened in 1999. So I'm calling bullshit on it. I bet you Kunz has never actually played with this on the table, ever. It doesn't fit. And no one has pulled up on it because it's a very nerdy thing to talk about, as is the Dreamcast thing. But in both instances here, we've got media quoting on the Democrats unfairly against what I think is a legitimate thing of the Republicans. Where'd you go?
Yeah, but I also feel like reading that article was really kind of like a bit of a step backwards in terms of implying that anybody's particular way that they play Magic is really reflective of their personality. I find that really, I don't know what the word is, spurious or whatever the word is of like.
Yeah, you would get that with the people that you've interviewed through, playing tabletop 40K. So that some people would look at, Tyranids or Nids, as they're called, as restrictive play because it masses out the game field and you're constantly at people, swarms and swarms and swarms. Yep. That's not reflective of your personality. That doesn't make you bloody Stalin. Yeah,
exactly. And I'm not so upset about it being applied to JD Vance because I don't like the man at all. But I am upset that the kind of the other direction that it could say about Magic players. And also,
that's right. And this is the one instance that we've ever had a mention of that type of card game ever by a US president or candidate. And also the one instance of his gaming background, and yet they're bang on to attacking him about it. It's not fair.
It's also because it's
a little bit of his personality, and how dare that?
Yeah, and also there's so much stigma already. I feel even though it's changing, but around games like 40K and Magic the Gathering, still, right? And so to see that sort of is being kind of used as a way to sort of be like, what a nerd and what a bad player that's playing that game. But you could be playing any sort of deck. It doesn't mean that that's how you are in your personality. And I just find it really an awful. I find that part worse more than whether who actually played with that card.
Yeah,
I find
and I guess, and then that's where my technical persnickety problem with it is, because even on the basis of that is not true, because when a 6 mana cost card, it is not a restrictive thing to play against. It takes you 6 turns to do that. Bro, you're dead by then. You're dead.
But Ben, this shows me is two things that are really interesting. First, that clearly the demographic that seems to be worrying the Democrats is this young man, nerdy man, right? That's to me what obvious, for the fact that there's Fortnite maps and we know statistically that they're losing the young male vote, right, to the Republicans. So that's the first one that I think is the first point that I think is really interesting. And the second is if you are going to target that demographic, get your facts right, because Ben, like you wouldn't be the first person to notice those two things about those dates, right? Like these people I shouldn't say these people, but people that are often very engaged with Magic, with 40K, they like those details.
You can't say Sega Dreamcast and then point to something 2 years later. We're still hurt by that, right? It's still too soon. March 2021 was a very sad period in my life.
Yeah, so that to me is really foolish, right? Because it means that they didn't do it well enough to even really bring people that they're losing onto their side. And in fact, you're right, it could turn people off. So they're the two things that I think is the most interesting about like those two examples. That we're very worried about that vote. And two, I don't think that they're going about it the sort of right way.
Yeah. Look, I'm on an advisory front as well. I don't see who's telling them to do this type of stuff. Like, who sends Harris to a record store to buy 3, printed records that she should have in her collection anyway? Like, what? Why do that? Why does it just points out that you're more fake? Yeah. Like, just tell her to walk in there, talk to the business owner, go, oh, these were really good, and buy a rare one, not buy 3 things which you should say that you should have in your collection, and then you pull them out and go, this was my favorite record, that's why I just bought it. Oh, I'm sorry, if it's your favorite record, why don't you own it? Like it's silly advice, and it's political stuff 101. The stories that are coming out about Harris being under stress and yelling at her team, and that, like, it's probably not too far from the truth, because it seems in disarray. You'd be pissed off if you were her. Like, you're campaigning, you're going to all of these rallies, and then Biden goes out and says some stupid statement all the time, and then
I feel like Kamala's been trying to do a very like kind of conservative, try not to rock the boat, because then I do think that the media can be really hostile towards it. I mean, that's why she didn't do interviews for the first 2 months. She didn't do a single interview, right, for her campaign. And so all of this is implying to me that she was really afraid of saying something that gets taken out of context, or
just
I don't know what you think.
Afraid of saying anything, I think, is the thing.
Yeah, but do you think, Ben, that do you think that there would be a risk that if she was her sort of genuine self, that she I do think she's under a lot of pressure to be like a kind of like a woman, and a woman of color in a certain way, so maybe that's limiting her. She's not really feeling like she's herself. I mean, that's maybe taking it, but that's something that could be happening.
I agree with you. I agree, but I think the problem is a byproduct of being untested. So that's the whole point of the political test, where you go through these pre-selections, that you're battling it out to get there.
She's got something to prove. She feels like she has a lot to prove potentially.
That's right. Yeah, and then how do you then make up for all of that in a short period of time? And then I think then you get the word salad, because she wants to be all of those things, and she's truncated probably, all of this stuff into a short period, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, there's something that I think appeals to the fact for Trump voters of how, even though he gets stuff wrong all the time, but that he does seem authentically himself, which is interesting, because I do think Trump does a bit of an act as well, but it's just like a good act comparatively.
Yeah, no, he does for sure, and I don't I don't buy the family aspect of it. I think he's a workaholic. I think that he just hangs around in the office with his buddies and he likes, going to the golf course, and that's about it. I think he
doesn't seem happily married. Let's just say that.
No, and they seem to have a marriage of convenience, and she seems like Ivana. As much as people critique her, she speaks when she wants to.
Yeah.
She's not pushed into anything.
Yeah. What do you think so you think Trump will win?
Yeah. I think it's a landslide. I think that the blue wall's over. I think he's probably looking at a bigger win than anything in modern history. It might be as big as Nixon, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting. I think Trump will win, but by a very small amount. That's my prediction.
Do you think the Democrats will burn enough votes?
We're not burning the votes, Ben. You're such a since when did you become such a I don't know. I'm not gonna say it. But you're a Trump apologist.
Anti-establishment person. Someone needs to take up an alternative side with our podcast. So yeah.
That's true. You knew what I was gonna say.
I wanted Bernie to win. I think Bernie could have won. I think the Democrats should have got rid of Biden prior to his foot. I think they should have got rid of him prior to him running the first time as vice president. I don't think he was worthy of a vice presidential pick, let alone presidential. Not a racist.
Controversial question. Do you think the Israel-Palestine, because this has been funny, I don't know if you know, they've been doing Target ads to both, the opposite. So it's like Kamala's this is the Republic's, the kind of Kamala's ads towards sort of pro-Israel has all been she's too soft on Palestine, and then the vice versa. They're kind of trying to target votes on that. Do you think that will on either side be a kind of take play in the election?
It has already. I think that the Dems really wanted her to, not back Israel. Yeah. It's difficult because then she's the pro-war candidate. God, yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
I was very disappointed that they didn't let sort of those two, during the Democratic, what was it? They didn't let the two people, the delegates speak that were anti, pro-Palestine. They didn't let them speak. Yep. They didn't let them take part in the rally at all, which I thought was pretty upsetting because they did have pro-Israel people talking, or people that had lost family members.
I get it. And on the same front, I think, with Israel's a big conversation that I've got a lot to say about, but on Ukraine as well. You look at the foreign policy, I guess, on the Democrats and the Republicans in that front. The Republicans are very openly going to shrink the expenditure globally. They don't want to be backing up NATO anymore, like Trump did last time. He told them, piss off, I'm not paying, for NATO. NATO needs to pay for itself. It wasn't right that the US economy was paying for, I think, 40% or something like that of its running costs when Europe was paying for 20. It was almost double. I'm not sure about those figures, but it was, double whatever the percentage was. As a US taxpayer, you'd be annoyed at that. So, and then you look at what's going on in Ukraine on the base front. And I know my doctor actually, he helped me with the FSP. He's Ukrainian. And so I've been speaking to him throughout this crisis because, when I had cancer, Ukraine wasn't a thing, and it's since become a thing. So every 3 months we talk about all the people he knows over there, his family and everything. Everyone's just going to work while there's missiles flying at each other between these two bodies. It's not a real war. It's the US and USSR, or now Russia, putting into a little conflict to test their military weapons. And the US has been very open about that, trying to bankrupt Putin's, power through military means. You don't do it that way. You don't give him then a pipeline to get his fuel or take his fuel to Iran, which has been signed off through Biden. Otherwise, you're just wasting. What's the point of it? It's for the military-industrial complex to put on a show.
I feel like the Ukrainians do really feel like, though, that Russia's trying to invade. I don't think that's fake.
The majority of them don't want to vote for Zelensky anymore.
Really?
He hasn't had an election since 18, I think, or 19.
I don't know enough about it, but I sense I disagree. I don't know where, but I disagree.
You look at the percentage of the population there that support the war versus not. Everyone's leaving the country because they don't want to be signed up for this conflict.
I believe that, but that doesn't mean, though, that we should just let Russia invade Ukraine.
Russia doesn't want to invade Ukraine. Russia can invade Ukraine today if they wanted to. Russia wants access to the Black Sea, and Russia wants the pipeline to Iran. The pipeline to Iran has already been agreed upon by Biden. So they've already got that win. So the point of starting the conflict has already been resolved almost.
But then why are they still fighting?
Fireworks show. That's it. That's what I honestly believe it. I think it's, Bill Hicks had an old, I don't know if you know the comedian Bill Hicks, but he talks about this old thing of the Iraq War. He goes, oh yeah, let's pull up missile number 14. Cool. What's 15 do? That's basically what they're doing.
What do you think will happen if Trump gets in, though? Like, do you think that the war will stop if Trump gets in?
Ukraine for sure.
How come?
I believe so, because of the economic policy of his being more of a centralist US policy and not towards Europe.
So you don't think Russia will invade if the funding stops?
No.
Well, I guess we'll have to see, Ben. We'll have to do a podcast after.
Yeah, that's my two predictions. Trump is going to win, and number two, Ukraine won't get invaded.
Okay.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. So you do a podcast after the election?
Oh, after the invasion or after the election?
Both.
Both.
Yeah.
During the election. Yeah. Let's go after the election, which is like next week. But should do AI and other things as well. But
that's
send
true.
through.
Lots to talk about.
The audience should send through suggestions to us.
Yeah, I also want to know what other people think about Ben's, because people more knowledgeable than I about the Russian-Ukraine situation should definitely, if they have any thoughts, because I feel like that sounds like almost like a conspiracy theory, Ben.
No, I'm not. Don't paint me towards me. It's going to be our new shit.
Basically, every podcast is going to be me trying to be like, Ben's a conspiracy theorist. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, about this.
But you say it in such a way that I'm like, this is what you're so good at. It sounds so convincing, and I'm like, maybe that is right. And then I'm like, there's some thought in the back of my head.
No, this isn't me doing the thing. No, that's a thing I used to do. That was a funny thing. Do you remember I used to do that? Yeah. You just go and introduce yourself in like a pub to someone, and then you say some little tiny factoid about some weird bug, and then they can believe that you study those bugs overseas.
Yeah.
I did it to that guy. I think we did it. Yeah, brainworm. Yeah. I think we did it to that couple.
But it's good to be back, and I know one listener out there that's going to be very exciting. I think we should do a little shout out to him. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah. Who is it? It's John Pence. No,
it's Mark. Hey, Mark. We miss you.
Yeah. So he did theology. He's got a theology or religious studies. Yeah. He has a background in philosophy thinking as well. So there you go.
For anybody that's not aware of the context of the podcast, Mark's like our biggest fan, and he listens to every episode. And especially like even the episodes that like probably he's the only person listening. So
but you're not. So what shocked me though, because I only thought it was Mark and possibly some old accounts that have subscribed, but 500 subscribers and like 8,000 listens. It's like that's a lot.
That's true.
I felt a sense of responsibility. It was really bad. Like I came home with an existential crisis. I'm like, Jody, the podcast was like popular. Like,
that's
shit.
so funny. That's crazy.
Well, I don't care.
Yeah, you're like we should plan better. We should like come up with some good content, and then we're both like, meh.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to be back, and
it is.
we should definitely write a little summary of our predictions, and then we can go over them.
Yeah, for sure. What else? Are we? We're contactable via not our Facebook page anymore. Apparently, our Facebook page is gone. So in the show notes, there has our personal Facebooks, and we still have a Discord, which is alive. So have fun trying to find that.
Yeah, sounds good. And thanks for listening. Is there anything else, Ben, or should we wrap up?
No, that's it. That's wrapped up.
All right.
Play the exit music and say bye-bye.
Bye.